My phone started to vibrate, and it turned out my daughter, who had arrived home early, was calling me. "Mom, where are you?" Her voice was unnaturally quiet, so I responded quietly as well. "I'm at the funeral of the head chairman of our neighborhood, honey. Is something the matter?" "There's a woman inside our house, a total stranger." I froze with fear. "It could be a burglar, honey. Just hide in the best place you can find and don't move. Your room's probably best. Lock the door." "Oh, we gotta call the police, and more importantly, your father." I was clearly in a state of panic. Even I could tell, and my daughter told me something else with that same quiet voice. "Mom, listen. Dad's in the house too. They both just came out of the shower." "What?" "My name is Taryn, and I'm 45 years old. I work at City Hall for the local government. My husband, Brandon, who is 5 years younger, works at an apparel-affiliated company. Basically, he works in fashion. We have 2 children, an older son and a younger daughter. Our son, Zachary, lives in another part of the country in his university's dorm, studying microbiology. Our daughter, Vanessa, is in her 2nd year of high school, and if you asked me if she was more passionate about studying or her club activities, I'd have to answer the latter. How did I meet my husband? Well, it all started with a certain group date, as the kids call it these days. My friend was going on a group date, and she invited me to match the numbers. I can't go on a group date. What am I supposed to talk about with a guy I don't even know? "Oh, come on, pretty please. You can just sit down and drink something. You don't even have to talk if you don't want to." "But there's no one but old grandpa's working at your job, is there? Now's your chance to get some younger, better guy's contact info." Back then, your social status pretty much depended on how many phone numbers of the opposite sex you had in your phone. While all my friends and peers were hired into fashion design companies and IT enterprises, I went into community service work. And that line of occupations permitted pretty much 0 opportunities to meet guys. That day, I went to my very first group date, and that was how I would meet my future husband. Brandon had a brilliant composure to him, and he had an excellent sense of style that made him stand out the most by far on that group date of all those years. Such was Brandon, and for some reason that I'll never understand, he took a liking to me and later asked if he could be with me. The friend who invited me was shocked. "What? Why would he want to go out with someone like you?" "I really have no clue. I don't know what I have that could be appealing to any man." "I'm so frustrated. Everyone was hoping they would become his girlfriend." I somehow managed to power through some amount of pressure from my friends and went on to be in a relationship with him. Why did you want to go out with me? Compared to my friends, I have nothing to show for."
"Something about your aura calms me down, you see? You make me feel something I've never felt before, and it's so nice."
I was a bit worried about the fact I was dating a guy 5 years younger than me, but, unlike what his appearance suggested, he was naive in an adorable way, and he also liked to be spoiled.
My job does have something to do with fashion, and I'm often a bit picky about how everyone looks, including myself. I often get burnt out because of this, and when I feel exhausted, being around you just calms me down very much.
I guess I can understand. I don't understand much of anything about fashion after all.
That's not quite it. My parents work in the livestock industry, and I didn't want to inherit their job, so I found this line of work as a means of running away. Sometimes my ambition makes me so exhausted. This business can be rewarding, but it's also pretty hard. Coming to you and your kindness and that aura makes me want to be with you.
I'm so glad you put it that way, because now I know I can be myself with you. After 22 months, he proposed marriage to me, and we tied the knot soon thereafter. For better or for worse, our married life together was nothing but smooth sailing, and it was wonderful. We were blessed with 2 beautiful children, and I knew I couldn't be any happier than this. Raising my children was hard, but my job provided me with 3 years of childcare leave, and even after I went back to work, I was quickly able to put them into a licensed nursery school. All things considered, I think I was pretty lucky with childcare. Apparently, Brandon's job and how much money he makes depends on the trends of a particular time and on how the economy's doing, more often than not. That's why he sometimes got stressed, and I had to endure some amount of anger and frustration from him a few times.
Ugh, I'm so tired, honey. And you get support even during your childcare leave. Must be nice to have a stable salary rolling in even though you're not even working. Sometimes I feel like I'd kill to leave my job to find something that's more stable.
While I was on my childcare leave, he did sometimes say things like that in a tone I did not appreciate. However, when our darling Zachary was diagnosed with an illness, he thanked me from the bottom of his heart, saying,
I'm so sorry, honey, for leaving all the childcare work in your hands. You're the reason why I can go to work without any concern, and I want you to know I really appreciate that.
After some time, I eventually grew more tolerant to his occasional outbursts, because I knew that deep down I was making a difference, and he was very, truly thankful for that. Brandon's outbursts became less frequent themselves, perhaps because he was also got more patient over time, and our fights became very sparse. With the years piling on slowly but surely as husband and wife, he probably started to consider the home something like a business partner, and perhaps he'll find ways to appreciate it. Such was our relationship, but recently, his company's performance took a nosedive and was staying below average for the better part of a month. Brandon currently holds the position of section manager, and he's working on a big, important project that could land him another promotion. His extra hours at the office were at an all-time high, and his stays overnight at the office, along the business trips and negotiations, were more frequent. His outbursts of frustration acted up again because I get to come home at a fixed time every day.
Community service must be nice, for real. You sit down at a desk all day and you get to go home at around the same time every day.
It's not so nice as you might think. I mean, sure, I may be committing less time to my job compared to yours, but it's a desk job. I really want to travel around, like you do. I get bored sometimes, sitting at my desk all day every day.
For this project to work, I need the exquisite fashion sense of the youth now. You're 5 years older than me, and I can't get any inspiration.
That's a little too far, don't you think?
But it's true, isn't it? Your line of work is mostly designed for boring, old, incompetent grandpas, and you basically work for the same demographic mostly. It's behind the times, for real.
Up until then, the things we would argue over would be something small and easily fixable, but nowadays, his complaining seemed to sound more and more like he didn't approve of me as a human being, and the things he said hurt me a lot more often.
I'm going on a business trip starting tomorrow. I shouldn't really say that, considering the fact you've never experienced something like that before. Don't call me unless it's an emergency, alright? It'll be nothing but a nuisance otherwise.
Is that so? I understand.
My job, unlike yours, which only makes you sit at a desk for 8 hours straight every day to do work that had already been assigned to you, needs a lot of time to think and be flexible. You have to find the work yourself before you can actually do it.
Things are hard these days, huh? It hurt me quite a bit, knowing that my own husband was making fun of my own job. I had been working for the community for a while, and I have lots of experience in the field, and I felt like I had a purpose to help the local people live the best lives they can. And I felt satisfied with it, knowing I was helping so many kind people, and this difference of opinion created a rift between Brandon and I, and it only became more obvious with time. Meanwhile, our children were at the age where they were completely focusing on themselves, and with school, studying, and their active social lives, noticing their parents were having a dispute just simply couldn't occur to them. Zachary's doing his best in college, living in a dorm room, and finding out what it's like to live away from home on his own. He keeps me up to date on his studies and his social life, and I can vouch he's having a very fulfilling life. Vanessa often goes on trips with her basketball team outside the region for tournaments and training camps, leaving the house to me and my husband. Hello, Zach, my darling. How are you doing? What's new?
Mom? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Something the matter?
I just wanted to hear your voice, honey.
It's a pretty bad time, I'm not gonna lie. I'm busy with an assignment right now. I'll talk to you later.
I said he keeps me up to date, but it often doesn't seem enthusiastic on his part. My calls were often something like that, and something like, "Hey, Mom, do you think you could send me some money? I need to buy a new pair of shoes." What? Again? You brought a new pair not too long ago, honey. It was a pretty bad choice, honestly. The soles got worn pretty quickly. Thanks, Mom. See you later. She would take the money I offered him and just leave. That daughter of mine, only coming to her mother because she needs an allowance. Even without my help, my children can do what they want to do with themselves. They're very independent. While I was happy, I didn't have to take care of them very much anymore. A part of me felt pretty lonely too. Call it a mother's bane, and also a wife's bane. Two things were making me a bit miserable these days. The fact that I wasn't fully adapting to living a life without seeing much of my children, and the fact my own husband, who was struggling to keep afloat at his job, was scorning me and the work I did for a living. There were some days when the loneliness and sadness just settled in pretty overwhelmingly, and it sometimes was hard not to cry at work. Such was life for some time, until one day, late at night, when I welcomed Brandon home, I noticed a discernible scent of soap coming from him. I thought it was just my imagination playing with me, but then I grew skeptical of the idea, because he smelled like soap every single time we got back home after that. That could only mean one thing. Brandon was bathing before coming back home. Hey, honey, you're coming home pretty late these days consistently. Do you go somewhere every night, or?
I'm always at work, damn it! You don't think I'm going out gallivanting and wasting my money on bullshit, do you?
I don't, but it's just... Furthermore, I discovered long strands of brown hair clinging to his clothes when I took them out of the washing machine. My hair, as well as my daughter's, are both short and black. I started to suspect he was having an affair, but, considering how I couldn't really have a proper conversation with him, being so short a temper these days, I didn't know how to deal with it, and for a while, it concerned me a lot. During that time, the head chairman of our neighborhood council suddenly passed away, and I was invited to the funeral. I say invited when mostly I mean I would be helping out with the ceremony, and I was also to spend a night elsewhere. Vanessa is away on a training camp since the day before yesterday and therefore isn't at home right now. She was scheduled to come back home on Sunday night. That night, Brandon would be alone in the house. I have to help out with the funeral of the neighborhood council chairman, and I'll be gone overnight.
Well, good work, I guess. I come home late every night now, so I guess I just really don't care, to be honest.
The neighborhood council chairman was an old man, and his wife had left this world a few years prior. He was always compassionate towards elderly folk and to people who were struggling with their day-to-day lives. And his contributions to the social welfare of the neighborhood is something worthy of respect. He didn't have family, nor did he have many friends that outlived him, so we took it upon ourselves at City Hall to work together and give him the nice traditional funeral he deserved. The memorial service took place on Friday night, and everything went smoothly. Afterwards, I arranged for the incense that smoked next to where his head lay rest until morning, and also went on to help preparing for the cremation and the burial. Later on that night, my phone started to vibrate, and I found my daughter calling. It turned out that one of the coaches on her trip contracted a pretty contagious infection, and the camp was canceled. The players were all dropped off at their homes by the other coaches, and she had arrived home much earlier than what we expected. So that's what happened, and now I have nothing to do at home. Are you staying somewhere else overnight this time? Yes, I am, honey. How do you feel? Do you feel sick? I don't think so, Mom. I feel fine. Then you could study. My head hurts, and I think my throat hurts too. I feel so tired I could sleep for years without waking up. I'm going to bed now. Why am I not surprised? Close the front door, okay? Your father might not come home tonight either. I will. Good night, Mom. Good night, honey. I was worried about leaving my daughter alone in the house overnight, but she was old enough and independent enough to take care of herself, and it wouldn't be helped in my case. I went on to finish up the preparations, made my way to my hotel room, showered, watched a bit of TV, and went to sleep. Saturday morning, the next day, we were right in the middle of the ritual chanting during the council chairman's cremation when my daughter called me again. Mom, where are you? Her voice was unnaturally quiet, so I responded quietly as well. I'm at the funeral of the head chairman of our neighborhood, honey. Is something the matter? There's a woman inside our house, a total stranger. I froze with fear. It could be a burglar, honey. Just hide in the best place you can find and don't move. Your room's probably best. Lock the door. Oh, we gotta call the police, and more importantly, your father. I was clearly in a state of panic. Even I could tell, and my daughter told me something else with the same quiet voice. Mom, listen. Dad's in the house too. They both just came out of the shower. What? Mom, what should I do? I didn't realize Dad was also home, and I actually just called the police before calling you. Before I hung up, I instructed her to stay in her room and to not come out until I got home. I then immediately called Brandon. He doesn't seem to answer. As far as I could tell, the woman that Vanessa had seen was none other than the woman who my husband was having an affair with. The fact that he just come out of the shower meant that my daughter's own father was cheating on her mother in the very same house where she was. I continuously tried reaching out to Brandon, and after perhaps a dozen attempts, he finally answered the damn phone. He sounded extremely annoying, and his tone was unlike anything I ever heard from him.
The hell do you want? I'm very busy right now.
Listen, someone's inside. I admittedly sounded like a chicken scared shitless, and Brandon got furious and prevented me from saying any more.
Why the frick are you calling me? If it isn't something important, don't frickin' call me at all, damn it!
I could hear police sirens wailing in the background on his end, and then I said, "It's over."
Wait, what? What do you mean?
I could hear the police sirens getting louder on his end. I was pretty sure there were more than one police car surrounding the house right now, and I could even hear the faint hum of a fire truck. What followed was the sound of a police officer shouting angrily as he pounded his fist on the door, and the screams of the woman who was having the affair with him. I hung up, brought my arm down onto my waist, and gripped my phone firmly. What was poor Vanessa thinking right now, caught right in the middle of this disaster? Thanks to my incompetence of confronting my husband about his affair, I'd risked the safety of my own darling daughter. I immediately felt so ashamed of my laziness and indecisiveness. Hearsay thereafter revealed that Brandon tried to send the police back by explaining to them that the report was a complete mistake, but when the police told him that the name of the person who reported to them was none other than his own daughter, he was dumbfounded.
What? My daughter? But she's away on a basketball training camp, officer. I've been alone in this house this whole time, I assure you. Your daughter is inside this house. Care to tell me where she is, buddy? Are you sure you're the owner of this house? Who's that woman behind you?
The police smelled a legitimate crime and interrogated him and the woman for some time afterwards. I left for home in the middle of the cremation process. By the time I arrived, rushing in through the front door, 2 officers stood there, blocking the way in. 2 other police cars were parked strategically, just in case there really was a burglar. I am the owner of this house. This is my husband, and that woman is his lover. My daughter is waiting, scared in her bedroom right now as we speak. I shouted all of that at once. I caught Brandon and his lover in their undergarments, facing interrogation from the officers. Upon seeing me, both my husband and the woman behind him became wide-eyed. The officers seemed to have understood what was actually going on, and one of them fetched a megaphone from their car and called for Vanessa to come down.
Your mother's home now, Miss Vanessa Richards. You may come down now.
Vanessa promptly appeared from her room, and as she pushed past her father and the woman clutching his arm, glaring at them and their pathetic undergarments with tearful eyes, started to sob as she threw her arms around me. That glare from his daughter might as well have been a M18 bullet. Brandon went dangerously pale and collapsed to his knees, sobbing. Vanessa let her voice be heard as she cried into my shoulder, and minutes of me rubbing her head, caressing her hair, and offering words of consolement passed. Brandon admitted to having an affair, convinced his wife and daughter were absent from the house. After the police checked and double-checked if the person who reported to them, namely Vanessa, was okay, determined the situation as non-criminal, and promptly returned to the station, paying their respects. I thanked them for their service, and sent them off with a homemade treat, and as they started to drive away, the officer used the megaphone to say,
We may not be able to arrest you, but that doesn't mean what you two did to Mrs. Richards and her daughter isn't forgivable. You should be ashamed of yourselves, Brandon Richards, Christine Mahone. This was cruel and inhuman. Justice is served. You understand the consequences, I hope.
Brandon just stared at the floor and never looked up. After the police left, I said to my husband and to his bitch, Do you realize how serious your crimes are? Did you not stop and think about what you were doing?
No, you don't understand.
This is our family home, Brandon. You did the unspeakable in this house, with a child present no less. Shame on you. Shame on you.
I thought Vanessa was away on her training camp. I didn't think anyone was home.
Something just snapped inside me. When have I ever said this would be okay if she really was on her training camp? Your stupid excuses are not gonna help you. Do you need brain surgery, Brandon? What is going on with you?
She said she wanted to come to my house.
Wait, what? No, I didn't say anything like that. You're the one who invited me. That's enough. I understand now. Seems like my logic can't reach you two dumb pricks. Just please, put on some decent clothes, and then get the hell out of this house and never come back. The woman who was having the affair with my husband walked away, mumbling curses and vulgar language to herself, and when she left without ever turning around when she was done with getting changed and packing up her stuff. Brandon took a lot longer, and I said to him, We're on the same page, right? We're getting a divorce. Of course you went and had an affair, prepared to divorce me in any case, right?
Now hold on a second, let's think rationally for a bit. A divorce is too drastic. I was only messing around with that woman. I never once loved her the same way I love you, Taryn.
Messing around, huh?
Yes, I was messing around. So, you know.
Someone who goes about messing around with some other woman stabbing me in the back and brutally hurting their own daughter in the process was never my family. Brandon failed to respond. I turned my back to him and strode out of the room, Vanessa at my side, and never looked back. That very same day, I took my daughter to my parents' house. Their hearts broke when they discovered their granddaughter in tears, shaking and sobbing. Zachary, who'd received the news from his sister, quickly came back home too. I told my children the truth about what I felt. To be honest with you two, I suspected your father was having an affair for a while now. You must be ashamed of me for not taking action sooner, and for letting this whole situation get worse with time. I'm so sorry. Why are you the one that's apologizing, Mom? You didn't do anything wrong. Dad should be the one to apologize. I hate him. I despise him. I never want to see his face again.
I kind of figured you'd do something like that sooner or later. You're a little bit dull sometimes, Mom, after all.
I was surprised with what my son just said. Hang on, Zach, honey. What do you mean by that?
I have a friend who acts a lot like Dad, you know? That kind of person just always lies and never tells the truth about anything. He bit off more than he can chew when it came to work, and maybe he could also be irresponsible. He's a good person when things are going well, though.
You looked at your father in that way?
Yeah, I did. He was always on his phone, even when I came home for the summer. I could literally see the huge number of hearts the chat history showed reflected in his glasses. You never noticed anything, so I was actually worried about you.
Ugh! He just gets more despicable with every passing minute. My children graciously accepted my proposal of divorcing their father. The woman whom Brandon was having an affair with was a model he'd met at a fashion event with his company was organizing. I say she's a model, but she's in her mid-30s, and the prospect of retiring had started alluding to her fairly recently. And in a panic, she approached a married man who could potentially support her after retirement. Perhaps Brandon thought he'd gotten younger by 10 years because a young, attractive model was actively seducing him. He just went along with what she had to offer. At this point, I really didn't want to know the reason why my husband cheated on me, and I never wanted to talk to him ever again, so I let the divorce process be preceded by my lawyer. The procedure went smoothly, and we were officially divorced before long. I showed no mercy when demanding compensation from the two traders, especially against my ex-husband, who I made sure received a huge demand to compensate for his daughter's broken heart. After the legalities, I never moved back into my place and instead moved to a large apartment near my workplace. While it was indeed a house that packed so many fond memories of us as a big, happy family, the fact that it was also where a heinous crime took place made my love for it disappear completely. My daughter even went on to say, "I'm not going back to that wretched house!" A pretty sure sign for trauma if you ask me. The woman, Christy McMahon, faced loads of criticism after her affair with a married fashion designer went public through a means of no one shall dare confess, and, as her reputation turned darker with every passing day, her offers for jobs quickly dried up thereafter. Right now, I hear she works in the adult industry, with another part-time cleaning job that pays the compensation she owes me. As for Brandon, the news of his affair with someone affiliated with the company spread like wildfire, and he was removed from the project manager and was stripped him of any opportunity turned to another promotion. He visited his parents, crying, begging for his folks to help him pay with the compensation. His parents did accept his request, on one condition. He was to leave his current job and come back home to work on their livestock farm. More than that, he was to inherit it, and under no circumstances would he ever try to run away again. My in-laws formally and graciously apologized to me for what their son had done.
"We're so sorry for what our stupid son has done. We hope you can forgive us."
Oh please, Mr. Richards, you did nothing wrong. Brandon and I may be divorced, and he may not be their father anymore. Zachary and Vanessa are still your beloved grandchildren, and they always will be. I do hope they can go on to have a nice time with you as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you so much.
Brandon started working out on their farm as a new underdog, working physical labor and most of the dirty jobs, while facing orders and sometimes some harsh words from hired helpers younger than him. This is what my son told me. Zach likes his father's home, and he sometimes drops in for a visit every now and then. Vanessa doesn't seem to be eager to go there just yet, though.
He was covered head to toe in manure as he worked, but compared to what he was back when he was still your husband, I honestly prefer him like this.
You really are a strange little duckling, aren't you? But thanks all the same, honey. Grandma and Grandpa must have been pretty excited to see you, huh? I don't care what happens to him. He was my ex-husband, but the fact remains, he is still his children's father. Our daughter still adamantly refused to even talk about him, but our son thought it was a good idea to still be somewhat connected to him in this way. Zach plans to go off to find work outside the region soon after he graduates university. He mentioned he wanted to pursue a career in community welfare, much like the job I do every day. Helping people live better lives and making the city better as a whole. I'd never known he wanted to become someone like that, and I was so happy when he told me. Vanessa wants to use her natural love and talent for sports to its fullest, and now she's thinking about becoming a physical therapist. She's going to a vocational school in another region, and so far, so good it seems. My children have started to carve their own futures, and I'm so proud of both of them. As for me, I thought it was finally time for me to stop longing for my children, and instead decided to take up a hobby, and perfect timing too. There was an event hosted by the City Hall that introduced a theater and musical organization, and they were recruiting extras, so I signed myself up. It seemed my physical movements and my voice caught the attention of some producers, and it didn't take long before I was offered more jobs to act in upcoming plays and musicals. I was about to head into a new world of art and excitement, but I think that should be a story for another day. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a nice day.